Okay, good morning and welcome to NASHiCS webinar on benchmarking exercise that a number of our national executive team undertook. As I say, if you haven't already done so, if you could introduce yourself in the chat, just let us know where you're from, that would be great. Just very quickly, this is, as I say, the benchmarking exercise webinar. It will be hosted by NASHiCS and Sarah Smith, George Weston, and Linda Dixon, who undertook the benchmarking exercise with those that partake in it. The presentation should last approximately half an hour. It may go on a little bit longer, but certainly no more than an hour. Just to let you know that if you have any questions whilst the webinar is going through, please pop them in the chat or wait till the end of the webinar and then we'll go through those once the presentation has finished. As you're aware, this is being recorded and therefore will be available in due course on the website within the members area only. Within the information hub. The presentation itself will also be available. If you've got any questions for clarity whilst we are in the presentation, please feel free to use the reaction slide at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand, and we'll quite happily stop and answer that question. As I say, that's just for clarity. All other questions, if you could put them in the chat, that would be fantastic. Without further ado, I am going to introduce Sarah. Sarah's going to lead on this presentation. Yep, over to you, Sarah.
Great. Thanks very much, Brett. Morning, everybody. So yeah, I'm just going to take you through these benchmarking slides, basically, ahead of the next round of benchmarking that we do. So, okay, that's not moving. Right, okay, so just to go through what I'm going to cover with you this morning. So background to benchmarking and why we decided to run the initial exercise at NASHiCS at the sort of back end of last year, sort of November, December last year. The benefits of benchmarking. Then I'm just going to take you through a review of some of the results from the first round of the benchmarking that we did, the first round. And then we're going to discuss the process and timescales for the next exercise, covering the last financial year, so financial year 2023-24, and then answer any questions that you've got at the end. As Brett said, if you need any clarifications as I'm going through, you can just ask, but any bigger questions will wait till the end. So just go through a bit of background then. So probably about 7 years or so ago, we were looking for benchmarking data for the social care sector. I just basically couldn't find anything. So informally, a small group of us, and that included RMBI and a couple of others, and ourselves, and I'm from the Orders St John's Care Trust. We set up an informal group and we started to benchmark informally. And actually, we've done that every year since, which has been really useful for us. So we decided to open it out to NASHiCS members, and we ran the first round, say, at the end of last year for the financial year 22-23. So benchmarking group was set up from the NASHiCS National Executive. That was myself, Linda Dixon, and George Weston. So we were the benchmarking group and the people behind that benchmarking email address that we had last year. So that's the background to it. So the benefits of benchmarking. So it's really helpful to know as an organisation where your organisation sits compared to other organisations in the sector. It just gives you a sort of a line in the sand, and it helps you identify areas of focus as part of continuous improvement. It's really helpful in terms of your annual health and safety reviews to your internal boards, committees, and so on. So very, very useful as part of that. Certainly we've included it for quite a long time. And it also helps build stronger relationships within your benchmarking group. So you can see what others are doing that you're not doing, or, you know, if there's anything different or any learning as well. So those are the benefits. So it's a really useful exercise. So I'm just going to move on now to review of the first results set. So I'm not looking at all of the results, just a bit of an overview really. So 13 organisations took part last time. So some took part in several categories, so not just one category. We compared all data as a rate per 1,000 full-time equivalent employees. The data was anonymous, which actually when it was a smaller group it wasn't, but it was decided at the outset that it would be anonymous. Each organisation was then given a unique code. So once we were ready with the data and we circulated the report out to those who took part, we gave them a unique identifier code so they could see where they sat within their particular group. We provided graphs that were split up by group. So we covered care homes, supported living, domiciliary care, physical disability, and so on as well. The two main groups where people came back were the care home group and supported living group. And then we also provided a full results table in the report, as well as a couple of charts that we generated ourselves, basically so that organisations could generate their own charts and data from that information. So we thought that would be useful for people as well. So just moving on to just show you a sort of a sample of the first set of results. So this was the care home group. So these are employee incidents per 1,000 employees for the financial year 22-23. You can see that 8 organisations took part in the first exercise. You can see that we also put a rate at the top of each bar, so you could see, and also included an average for the group as well, which actually is really useful if you're writing report and so on. You could benchmark yourself against that average as well as the others in the group. So this was all incidents. Then so this is again the care home group for the same period as a rate per 1,000 employees again, but we focused in on some key areas, which was manual handling, which includes moving and handling, slips, trips and falls, distress reactions. Some organisations call this something different, so could be resident interactions. So there's various things that different organisations label it as, and then riddles as well. So those were the key areas, and those are the key areas that we've always benchmarked on as the smaller group in previous years, really because they're the sort of key areas for our sector, which is why we picked those. So those were the two main charts. And then supported living, so we did the overall, let's say I'm not showing all of the results here. We did all incidents for supported living, and then we honed in on the same group, so manual handling including moving and handling, slips, trips and falls, distress reactions, and their riddle incidents as well. And here we had 5 organisations taking part, and again we produced an average for the group, which is the last bar here. Just moving on to so we decided, we hadn't actually set out to do this, but we decided to do a chart for all settings, because partly because there were 2 categories in here that only one organisation actually put their stats forward, and that was this DS1, which is domiciliary care, and SP1 here at this end, which was physical disability. So we wanted to give them something to benchmark against, although it's not like for like. But we found actually this chart was quite interesting in the sense that supported living particularly for distress reactions, was generally higher than for care homes. And it's going to be interesting in this second round to see that trend over a couple of financial years, and to see how that pattern sort of emerges there as well. Again, we did an average for the whole process, and as I say, there was a sort of a raw stats table added to the end as the rate per 1,000 employees. So those are the charts. So just moving on then to a recap then for the second round. So what we're intending to do is the same process in the second round. We're hoping that we're going to have a larger group or larger groups this time, but particularly for those two areas where only one organisation took part, but also for the care homes and supported living categories too. So it'll be on all employee incidents. Now, just to say at this point, because I think some of you might ask this question, is that we're not intending to cover resident incidents in this round. However, we may look to do this separately at some point. So, but it's not. We're going to keep this as simple as possible for the time being. This might be an area that grows, and we may do resident incidents at another point, particularly as the data is anonymous. There's no particular reason why we couldn't do that. But for this round then, all employee incidents covering the last financial year. So obviously that's only just been concluded. So we're going from 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024 inclusive. So that's the data that would be included. Same as before, the key areas we'd look at, so it would be all employee incidents, and then those key categories, so moving and handling, including manual handling, slip, trips and falls, distress reactions, and employee riddles as well. So those would be the areas that we'd be looking at. So in terms of the process, so for each category, you'd need to calculate an incident rate per 1,000 full-time equivalent employees. We use full-time equivalent employees, so an organisation with, say, lots of part-time staff don't get an advantage, so it makes it fairer, it makes it a more of a level comparison. This ensures an accurate comparison between different sized organisations. It's a useful approach actually when you're looking at your own incident stats internally. We found it quite useful if you're comparing, say you're an organisation with different regions. That is also a useful tool to use for that. So the formulas, number of incidents in each incident category. So for example, you take slips, trips and falls, and then you divide it by your number of full-time equivalent employees. Now you need to, what we always do is go to our HR department and check the number of full-time equivalent employees so it's accurate, and then multiply it by 1,000, and then that gives you a rate per 1,000 employees and allows that comparison. What you'll find if you take part is you get full instructions, and you also get the support from myself, Linda and George. So if you're not sure of anything, you can ask us and we're happy to help. The way we've set out the form for you to complete this data, it actually helps you through this formula as well. Linda set the form up really well, so it takes you through each stage of that process. So say we'll support you with that. Also, once you've done it once, it's really straightforward as well, and it's just a useful way to look at things in general in terms of stats. So just looking onto our timescales now. So if you want to take part in round two, let us know. We're opening this up from tomorrow, and this is the benchmarking address. So if you send an email saying that you're interested in taking part in the second round, we will then send you the form to complete. You will need if you take part in more than one category, so say care home and supported living, you'll need to have a couple of forms to do that, because you need to keep them distinct and separate. So just let us know and we'll send you the forms. Closing date will be the 3rd of June for your completed forms. Say in the interim, if you need any support, you just get in touch with us. Reports, the results will be generated and circulated on or before the 21st of June. But we are hoping to give you an update at the summer conference on the 12th or 13th of June. Not sure what slot we'll get yet, but we're hoping to give you an update with what information we have at that point. And that's it. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from within the room? There's a couple of bits of information I wanted to add. One of the things that we are now aware of is that the HSE, in particular, the leads in terms of the policy writers and those that head up on inspections they've made it known that they would like to be involved in this particular exercise and are looking to support it. How that actually will turn out, we're not 100% certain. But it's certainly something that bodes well for additional resources on this. And the other thing is that in terms of the data that's been collected and presented to you today, the actual data set itself will be released publicly within the next 24 hours, simply because it's anonymised and there's no reason for that not to happen. It will also hopefully encourage more providers to become involved. As I'm sure you can appreciate, with the additional information, it will certainly be more informative and give us a much better idea sector-wide how the data translates. I do notice that there's a bit of a conversation going on in the chat, but certainly if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask directly, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask that question. I'm just going to check in the chat. Okay, one of the questions, and I believe it has been answered, but it's just in case anybody else has noted. If we took part the last time, will we need to send the form automatically? Will we be sent the form automatically, or should we register our interest again? And I believe the answer is please register again. Is that correct? Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be right.
Next question is from Nicholas. This is, as a local authority, presumably you'd only be interested in the data from social services and housing departments rather than such environments as schools. Certainly at this point in time, yes, absolutely, that would be the case. Can the data be broken down to areas such as England, Wales and Scotland? Jacqueline, in terms of that question, the answer is yes, but I don't believe that will be the case in this next round. Obviously, for it to be of benefit in terms of breaking it down across the country, we would certainly need to have a lot more providers involved so that that's meaningful data. So at the moment it will be UK wide, and it will really just be the NASHiCS member organisations that choose to take part in this particular exercise. Okay, that's the questions. Just wanted to note that our Board of Trustees was really happy that we have some useful benchmarking info. We're keen to carry on. Excellent. That's great news, Lynette. Thank you. And certainly from the board perspective, that is definitely something that we all know that our boards and our senior leadership teams are keen to understand how we perform against the rest of the sector. So it's definitely something that will be beneficial both at board level and operationally to understand how the performance is going. Just really quickly, does anybody else have any further questions in terms of the presentation? It will but because it's being made a public document, we will, just to let you know, that we'll certainly publish the link to it on social media, so certainly on LinkedIn, and it will also be available on the website. We wanted to do this and also dot some I's and cross some T's effectively before we released it. And those that had asked for it, they did get it, but yes, it will be sent out again. We're getting a couple more questions. How do you calculate the FTE when using agency staff?
When using what, sorry?
When using agency staff.
Oh,
guess,
okay, that's an interesting question. Agency. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have to say, invariably, I mean, I don't know the accident rates for agency staff. Certainly, I can talk for my organisation, whereby we have very few accident reports come through from agency staff. But it's certainly something that we will look to investigate. I think the difficulty is that it's understanding, and it may well be that what we develop into is working hours as opposed to FTE. But at the moment, FTE is our simplest way to approach this, and it, we accept that there will be some data that is relative to agency staff, but I would imagine that would be minimal. I hope it would be minimal.
Good question, though. Actually, that's not come up before, so that's a really good one. Thanks for that.
Yes, Rachel, you will be able to get hold of this year's results as we will be releasing them to everyone. So it will be freely available, is the answer. Okay, I think we're kind of pretty much at the end of that presentation. I've just flicked onto the main screen. It was really just to give a quick update on some other information, but just to say thank you very much to Sarah, George, and to Linda, who compiled this information. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, there was quite a bit of work in terms of understanding the data that you received, translating that, and then putting it into meaningful data for us to look at. And I have to say, for those of you that have seen the outcomes, it was quite interesting reading, and I'm sure you'll agree once you do get a copy of that. So once again, thank you to Sarah for your presentation, and to the other two for their hard work in conjunction with yourself. Really just leaves me now to give some dates for diary. In case you didn't know, on the 7th of June is our next webinar. That's on noise, and it will be presented by social care consultants. Then next up, and I do hope that you're all aware, we have our summer seminar on the 12th and 13th of June. I really do hope to see you all there. 1.5 days of seminar with some excellent speakers. And I'm sure you'll agree it's an excellent rate, considering that your meals and accommodation are included. And it is sponsored, so we will see a number of service providers attending and showing off what they have to share with the care sector. And then obviously we will have more webinars throughout this year, and then going right up to the 11th of December, we have the London Networker. Apologies for talking about the Christmas period already, but it's certainly one to keep your eyes out for. And equally, we've already started planning our NASHiCS 21st birthday celebration and awards. And of course, that will be back in June of 2025. So as you can appreciate, there's a lot of work going on in terms of the future. So it's just leaves me to say thank you very much for attending. If you're traveling, stay safe, and I hope the rest of your week goes well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.